Hi everyone, today I'll talk about the system challenges of deploying differential privacy in large-scale systems. Let me start by discussing the setting where DP can be helpful. There are many scenarios where there's a desire to share valuable information about a population or a group of users without compromising individual privacy. For instance, as academia, we desire to have access to industry-collected data to answer research questions. However, this is often challenging as organizations cannot share these insights due to privacy considerations. Similarly, when service providers or government agencies release public statistics, they must navigate the delicate balance between providing useful data and protecting the privacy of individuals in their dataset. This is a long-standing problem that many researchers have thought to address. Attempts to utilize anonymization techniques or opting to report only aggregate statistics to circumvent these issues have proven to be ineffective. We have repeatedly seen that these best effort or heuristic privacy measures are inadequate. Today, the state of the art for addressing this problem is DP, which formally defines privacy in the context of statistical releases and provides a foundation for rigorously analyzing and controlling the leakage. Suppose we have a dataset consisting of user data and we perform an analysis to produce a result. Now, DP requires that if we take a neighboring dataset where we remove any arbitrary individual and apply the same analysis, then the results must be almost indistinguishable. In this definition, privacy is preserved since by just looking at the result, it's not even clear whether an individual's data was used or not. More formally, DP requires that the difference in the output distribution of the computation is bounded by the privacy parameters epsilon and delta. A smaller epsilon and delta mean that it's harder to distinguish whether the first or the second dataset was used. To achieve this property, DP mechanisms introduce carefully calibrated noise into the computation, just enough to mask individual contributions while preserving aggregate trends. In DP, there is a noise accuracy trade-off that we must navigate by adjusting the privacy parameters. Small epsilons give more privacy but decrease data usefulness. Large epsilon yield more accurate results as less noise is added, but this also provides less meaningful privacy guarantees. It's essential to choose the epsilon carefully, otherwise the privacy guarantees might become meaningless. Much research has focused on finding a suitable trade-off between accuracy and privacy for individual applications. DP was introduced in 2006 and has since gained significant academic interest. The first major deployment occurred in 2014 in the Chrome browser to collect telemetry data. Until today, probably the most impactful use of DP is in the US 2020 census. And more recently, DP has also been referenced in privacy regulations as a recommended practice. Since 2017, many industry players have utilized DP for sensitive use cases within their organizations. These deployments have sparked important efforts focused on tooling for DP. Today, the developer ecosystem for DP is fragmented across different libraries, each enabling DP computations for specific workloads. Here's where we stand today in terms of tooling for DP. In practice, DP applications are rarely deployed in isolation, and the problem is that the existing DP frameworks provide only per-application guarantees. However, as all of these applications interact with the same user's data, we risk underestimating the real privacy costs when we ignore this cumulative impact. To address this issue, we introduced Cohere, a system that enables us to enforce system-wide DP guarantees by tracking a shared privacy state across all applications. Now, this is challenging because it introduces a coordination problem between applications that are developed by multiple teams and in different DP libraries. In addition, there are compatibility issues between the privacy analysis of different applications. Now, with this system-wide privacy state, we can define an acceptable level of leakage expressed as a privacy budget and treat it as a shared resource across DP applications that needs to be carefully managed. Now, as the privacy budget is scarce, the demand will most likely exceed the supply. So we need to answer how to effectively allocate these resources under complex preferences. Finally, the available finite privacy budget is bound to be depleted over time, even with the most accurate privacy account. The challenge here is to find a way to enable continuity, so not running out of budget. Now, let's tackle these challenges. I'll primarily focus on the unifying the application layer and resource planning aspects of Cohere, and I'll leave out aspects related to the data layer for the sake of brevity. We start with the application layer, where the challenge is to analyze the cumulative privacy loss of different applications built with different frameworks. While existing DP frameworks provide near optimal privacy guarantees in isolation, combining these guarantees across applications directly can result in a highly suboptimal analysis of the overall system. Instead of considering each application as a black box and simply composing the epsilon delta guarantees they provide, we can achieve a significantly better global privacy guarantee through a joint white box analysis that considers the internal details of each analysis. However, given the vast design landscape of these DP systems, how can we even achieve such a joint analysis efficiently? Now, DP frameworks, despite being widely different concerning queries and domain-specific techniques they support, they all rely on a core set of fundamental mechanisms to introduce carefully calibrated noise. In practice, to ensure a coherent privacy analysis, systems break down their queries into these fundamental mechanisms. In our system, we intercept these noise plans from each framework and present them in a unified manner. This then allows us to jointly analyze different DP systems simply as a global composition of a small number of fundamental mechanisms. Because we now have a white box view, we are no longer restricted to using the inefficient epsilon delta composition. Instead, we can use the much more powerful Renyi differential privacy approach, which tracks a bit more information but achieves much better composition guarantees. Now, RDP is an attractive choice for composition in this setting because it supports a wide range of mechanisms, is relatively efficient, and still offers a simple composition rule that is attractive from a systems perspective. With this, we now have unified the application layer in a way that vastly improves our system's ability to perform a privacy analysis across diverse DP applications. However, is there a further way at the system level to enhance the privacy analysis? Well, in this setting, the way applications access data creates opportunities to improve the analysis further. One well-known property of DP is that when you apply DP mechanisms to data from disjoint groups of users, you can model this separation with parallel composition. As long as applications only access individual partitions, the total privacy cost is only the maximum. In practice, applications will not be restricted to accessing individual disjoint sets. Many times they access overlapping subsets of users. To account for this, we can apply block composition, a more generalized accounting technique that tracks privacy costs for a variety of different subsets of users in blocks, and supports applications that touch on more than one subset. For block composition, the way we instantiate the blocks determines how effective the composition can be, and is therefore very important. The existing work has usually equated blocks with specific subsets of users. In our work, block instead corresponds to hypothetical views of users, differentiated by their attributes. Now, this is important as the best blocking depends on the data access patterns of applications. For example, if we have a large language model for French people and another application for US national statistics, then ideally we want to track the costs of US and French users separately. The problem is that in practice it's hard to predict access patterns of applications in advance. So in our work, we are introducing partitioning attributes that define hypothetical subsets of blocks by enumerating all possible countries. The idea also extends to other attributes, such as year of birth. The only requirement is that the partitioning attribute schema is known in advance. Importantly, we do not need to reveal which user is from which country. By making the privacy analysis much more fine-grained, we can massively benefit from the application's access pattern to improve the overall analysis. This allows us to run more applications and/or receive more accurate results while achieving the same privacy guarantees, and is therefore very valuable to us. In practice, partitioning attributes are not the only access pattern we observe that can help improve the privacy analysis. In fact, in many cases, we don't need the whole population of users for the analytics to be useful. When a percentage of the population is already sufficient, then we can apply a technique called amplification via subsampling to reduce the privacy cost of each application, therefore improving the joint privacy analysis even further. Now, to summarize, in the management layer, we now have a privacy accounting scheme that allows us to do a fine-grained privacy analysis that takes into consideration application semantics. From a DP perspective, we maintain a concurrent privacy filter using RDP for each of the blocks to enforce a system-wide privacy budget. Applications express their privacy requirements in the form of a noise plan and their data requirements as a filter condition on the partitioning attributes and the percentage for subsampling. The issue now is that even with the most fine-grained privacy analysis, we will usually not be able to accommodate all requests for data releases without compromising the acceptable level of privacy leakage defined by our privacy parameters epsilon and delta. Consequently, we need to treat the acceptable privacy leakage as a budget that we need to carefully allocate across applications. Of course, even with an optimal allocation and a tight privacy analysis, we would eventually deplete the available finite privacy budget in the context of a system continuously applying DP mechanisms. So we need to think about how to ensure system continuity while maintaining strong privacy guarantees. In practical deployments, this issue is often circumvented by periodically refreshing the privacy budget of users. However, this fundamentally undermines the guarantees of DP. Instead, Cohere exploits the fact that in large systems there is virtually always a steady influx of new users. While privacy budgets for individual users must be finite, we can retire users and replace them with new users to replenish the overall available budget. Now, this user rotation needs to be carefully implemented to minimize the need for additional tracking, maintain balanced budget usage, and provide clear semantics for DP applications. In the paper, we show that simply retiring users when their past privacy consumption reaches a threshold leads to a biased population of active users without clear semantics, as the number of active users is dependent on prior queries. I'll not discuss today how we address these issues in our system, I merely wanted to highlight them. Now, the insight is that these active groups of users can be seen as just another dimension in our blocking scheme. This allows us to utilize our existing privacy analysis approach and make it even more fine-grained. So let's get back to the resource allocation in our system. Given a set of requests, each expressing their privacy and data requirements, the question is which combination of requests do we allow, without violating the budget constraint from the shared privacy state. We could, for example, optimize for the number of applications we can support under a fixed privacy budget. This may sound appealing at first, but low privacy costs often correspond to higher error rates. We could try to factor this in and maximize the privacy accuracy trade-off, so consider DP costs relative to the expected accuracy. In practice, however, the privacy accuracy trade-off also does not fully capture the priority or importance of an application. In practice, we need to expand to a more generic utility metric that encodes how valuable a result of a given accuracy is to an organization. In other words, factor in the relative priority of the application to an organization. Okay, great. Now we've clarified our objective, let's dive into the constraints we need to navigate. Because of the DP composition with partitioning attributes, it is non-trivial to determine which combination of requests will make the best use of the budget. In the paper, we show that we can formulate this as a variant of the multidimensional knapsack problem, where each block corresponds to a dimension. The challenge is that as we want to make the privacy analysis as fine-grained as possible, so which means as many blocks as possible, we end up with a massively high-dimensional problem, where the problem size depends on the domain size of the partitioning attributes. The optimization opportunity in practice is that we rarely need the full dimensionality to prioritize between a given set of requests. The problem is that it's hard to know which dimensions we need in advance. So let's consider an example. Here we have different candidate applications selecting different blocks based on partitioning attributes. To tame this complexity and allow for fine-grained analysis, we can collapse the allocation problem into segments. A segment is a set of blocks that will be treated identically by any allocation and captures the contending requests. Consider as an example the orange segment where requests 1, 2, and 3 compete for the same set of blocks. We can collapse the 21 blocks in this segment into a single dimension in the knapsack. Now, by analyzing past allocations, we can establish budget constraints for each segment. Overall, this segmentation strategy significantly reduces the dimensionality, making our optimization problem far more manageable to solve. Today, I've shown you how Cohere significantly improves the privacy analysis of mixed workloads, resulting in more utility under the same privacy budget, by unifying existing DP libraries and leveraging data access patterns. In the paper, we further show how Cohere unifies the data layer by tagging data with privacy IDs. Additionally, we address two system challenges around planning the use of privacy resources. First, we establish a continuity guarantee of our system with a carefully implemented user rotation mechanism that prevents budget depletion. And second, we formulate and optimize an allocation problem that allows for prioritizing between applications based on complex preferences. In our evaluation, we experimented with various workloads and we simulated a scenario with weekly allocations over 40 weeks. We compare against the closest related work called PrivateCube, an extension to the Kubernetes orchestration system for privacy resources. PrivateCube does not support the fine-grained privacy analysis of Cohere, but their allocation problem can also be understood as a multidimensional knapsack problem. Now, we instantiate both our system and PrivateCube with three approaches to solve the underlying optimization problem: a greedy first-come, first-served baseline and two heuristic-based approaches. As a baseline, we show the improvements in terms of the percentage of accepted requests for a workload that is a mixture of machine learning and analytics tasks. In this setting, Cohere achieves a 1.5x improvement. However, here we only maximize the number of requests. However, in reality, not all requests are equally valuable. Optimizing for a more realistic utility metric, we can see an increase of 9x for this workload. This really highlights the importance of a fine-grained privacy analysis in DP for these mixed workloads with complex preferences. Now with this, I would like to conclude. I hope I managed to convey insights into the challenges encountered when deploying DP in large-scale systems, and how we can effectively tackle these obstacles while ensuring rigorous privacy guarantees at a system-wide scale. Thank you for your attention.